Trump is not giving up his threat to take over Greenland, although reportedly military invasion was not discussed at Rubio and Vance's meeting with Danish and Greenlandic ministers on Wednesday. Today, the president threatened to slap new tariffs on countries that don't go along with an American acquisition of the island. If that all sounds familiar to you, it's because he's also warned that countries that do business with Iran would face new levies just a few days ago. And the nightcap crew is still here. So, Ron, are tariffs just the solution for everything?
100%. Absolutely. For China, they are. China just had a trade surplus of $1.2 trillion, which is an all-time record for a country that faces tariffs. Canada's cutting a trade deal with China. We've lost 63,000 manufacturing jobs in the United States. Manufacturing's contracted for 10 straight months. So, yeah, it's working really well.
Is this the golden age that we were
Gilded,
promised?
perhaps, but not golden. Yeah.
Man, I'm sure you guys all saw Vaughn's exchange with the president, where he pressed him on where we stand with Greenland right now. I want you to take a listen to this.
Mr. President, do you commit to not militarily engaging NATO partners?
I don't talk about that.
Mr. President, you're not willing to commit to not attacking a NATO partner?
You urge protesters.
So, Molly, the president not committing to not attacking one of our closest allies.
You know, it's not good. It's not good.
Not great.
Not great. No. Look, NATO is one of the sort of most successful treaties of the. This has
history.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think. What I think is the most interesting is that you'll remember that in Trump's first term, everyone was trying to keep him from leaving NATO. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of interesting that he sort of figured out a way to just destroy NATO without leaving NATO, which is to just, I mean, I don't think you could have cooked this up in your worst imagination. I think important also to remember that the first term, the reason why he got interested in Greenland was because a friend of his, an investor called Ronald Lauder, who gave the Republican Party a lot of money, especially in 2022 midterms in New York with a lot of candidates in New York State. He was the one who said, like, we should check out Greenland. Let's just take this thing. And then there were pieces in the Wall Street Journal, editorials about how maybe this wasn't such a bad idea. So this has been cooked up by a crew of pretty unserious people.
Don't forget the map. Don't forget It's big on a map, which is huge for Trump. If you look at a Mercator map, that Greenland is there and giant. So, of course, that should belong to the United States.
So it's just like a real estate thing for him.
It really is, and I think that it's one of the many ways where you see Trump have a weird idea and the administration try to reverse engineer a policy out of it.
Right.
Like, he wanted Greenland because reasons. They're trying to find what those reasons are.
Well, no, there are some strategic reasons.
There are, but they're not his reasons.
Right. The Arctic ice is melting. China and Russia have submarines, nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed, in some cases submarines, in the Arctic. There are national security issues there.
But we're already able to send our
we have a
troops
1951 agreement with them that allows us basically to do anything we want militarily and economically. We can mine for minerals if we so chose.
But it does effectively end NATO.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think
yourself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because we would be one of those the country breaking it.
Yeah. Well, Macron basically said, that I think it was something like, this is a version of a new colonial era. He didn't name Trump, but it was very clear who he was taking a swipe at earlier.
And when the French are denouncing colonies, you know you've lost the plot.
Well, Philip, is this the new era? Are we back in like a 19th century strongman model? Trump gets to carve up this and that over here in the Western Hemisphere. China gets to do the same and bully everyone over there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as though Trump is open to that. Whenever I have these conversations, I wonder what it felt like to be a resident of the world in 1930, right? I mean, it's just like, what are we not foreseeing? What happens after this? I mean, when you have Denmark and Sweden and France and Germany sending preliminary troops to Greenland,
the whole point of keeping that thing together was to avoid World War III.
Exactly right. And now we're the ones. It's bizarre, and none of us knows where this goes. And it's we joke about it, but it's just like it's absolutely insane, and there's no other word for it. And no matter what resources exist under the soil there, the fact that we're going to tear apart the world because of it is just makes no sense.
And my man is not in a position of strength, right? He's polling the lowest he's ever polled, right? He's only 1 year into a 4-year term, and the idea that now he's going to drag us into some kind of conflicts that nobody, I mean, the polling on Greenland, is beyond. Even his people don't want him to go into.
Philip, can I ask you too about Iran and not just sort of Trump's posture right now and the threats that he's, sent to the supreme leader there, but also kind of the split screen moment where the Trump administration has been supportive of people protesting the theocracy there, as they also crack down in an incredibly violent way, as we've discussed tonight, on protesters here on our own soil. How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, I mean, it is easy for an American president prior to this one to have said what's happening in Iran, the blossoming potentially of freedom there, which apparently appears to have installed, is good. And that is the sort of value that America brings to the world. But Donald Trump has abandoned those values, that set of American values. He has set those to the side in favor of his own morality, according to what he told the New York Times. And as such, it is dissonant, it is discordant, that these things do not match up. And the only sense that one can make of it is that's because it's Donald Trump.
And what was also worrisome is that vocalization of support for the protesters may have emboldened them further. And now they've been crushed, it seems, and they may have well been turned back from what they had originally intended. And this may not turn out in the way in which anyone had hoped that they would have.
Our colleague Ayman Mohideen was talking about that earlier, just that there's been a sort of doubling down by the regime there on protesters.